in the world of arts, and we also do have professionals joining us from the global health community to explain a lot more to us about how the two can relate and create what one of our panelists earlier called a vibrant life. And a tasty life. I believe that is the word that she used. Well, still talking to us, we do have photographers that contributed to the amazing exhibition. For those of you that are in the room tonight, do not shy away from interacting with these pieces. They're truly remarkable. Feel free to walk around and ask some questions. All right, now I am going to be getting into a panel discussion with Dr. Zoe Nooridge, who is a reader in African and comparative literature and visual cultures at King's College London. She researches contemporary arts in Rwanda and cultural responses to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Her work often involves collaborations with artists and survivors. She has convened multiple photography workshops in Rwanda, programmed events, and has also been part of exhibitions of Rwandan photography in London. Well, her biography goes on and on. She's been featured and has made 2 BBC radio documentaries grounded in her research. She has also been part of a translation of Not My Time to Die that was published by Who's the Press back in 2019, beg your pardon, and so much more. Also joining the panel tonight is Aisha Bada, who is a medical doctor in training and photojournalist based in Lagos, Nigeria. Her work is inspired by a passion to tell visual stories that would create awareness of various issues, including environmental, medical, and health issues. She began to explore photography at the age of 17, exploring street documentary and smartphone photography. Incredible. She takes an immersive approach to visual storytelling, creating relationships with her subjects that she intends to represent, spending months and years embedded in their lives. Her work focuses on capturing a moment, whether it is lifestyle or any other form of documentary work. Well, they'll be joining us via Zoom. Do we have them ready? And also a gentleman who will be introducing himself. I believe it's only fair that he does that, and that's Andrew Esiebo. Yes, do we have our panelists ready?
Okay, hello. Sorry, I'm not so promising we're using Zoom, so I just,
I'm not sure Isabel can hear us though.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Wonderful.
Yeah, sorry.
Hello, Zoe, Andrew, Aisha.
This video.
Hello.
All right, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I see at least one of you.
Nice to see you again. Yeah, sorry, I have to say, after one, my internet is really lousy where I live like in a remote place. My name is Andrew Esiebo, based in Nigeria. Also, my photographer, I'm more interested in human condition and the spaces they find themselves. Looking at various creative ways of exploring, doing their daily life. I've done several works around, culture, like sports, football, but looking at football in daily life, done about religion, sexuality, and my current work about COVID-19, it's focused on and the frontline workers, which I spend time with, observing how they work. So my work is about looking at their various intervention, and that's what I hope to present during this exhibition we have there.
All
So
right.
thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Andrew. I want to start with you, Zoe. Just reading about what you are all about and looking at some of the work that you've been able to produce, it leaves me wondering, what inspired you to put this project together, and what were you trying to achieve with your message, and do you feel like you managed to get to the result that you desired getting into this creative process? Also, what were some of the enabling factors for you?
Thank you so much for the name. So my work involves lots of different projects, and I feel slightly out of touch with Rwanda right now because it's been 2 years since I've been in, because Rwanda is the resident UK citizen, unfortunately and frustratingly, and so I haven't been able to be present in Rwanda. But I have been collaborating with Jacques Ndabo from afar, the curator of the exhibition that we've just been looking at. I worked with Jacques at the very beginning of the pandemic, actually. I had a little bit of funding that was left over that was going to take me to Rwanda to continue a few artistic conversations. And that wasn't, of course, possible because all travel cut down. And so what we did very swiftly there was we arranged some very quick emergency grants that we were giving to artists whose work had been cancelled, because, as I'm sure you've been talking about in this festival, the arts were very badly hit with commissions being cancelled, journalistic work being cancelled, and so on immediately when COVID began to hit. And so we did some very rapid response grants there that was getting money to photographers very quickly whose income had suddenly disappeared. And that was looking at a whole range of projects, some to do with mental health, thinking about what it's like to be inside, what it's like to be thinking about mental health within experiences of containment, others thinking about more economic impacts, what does it mean for traders and so on, whose income is suddenly looking so much more precarious. What I find fascinating thinking about the pandemic is how my longer term work can help us think about artwork that's coming out of the pandemic and that might come out of the pandemic. So I've worked a lot with imagery of survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, thinking about what kinds of images are empowering, what enables people to tell their stories, to think about the complexity of their stories, but also what kinds of images are damaging, what kinds of images have the potential to wound, what kinds of images other people make them seem less than human, and so on. And so I think one of the key things I'm interested in seeing how it comes out of Rwanda is thinking about distance from loved ones, separation from loved ones, and how we make that apparent through imagery. Also inequalities, the very different ways in which we've all lived through the pandemic. How is that going to become apparent, the kind of the huge range of experiences that we're seeing? I'm also interested in loss, grief and loss. I think the experience we've lived in the UK is quite different to the experience of Rwanda, in the sense that in the UK we've had 165,000 deaths. So everybody in the UK now knows people who've died of COVID, and it was a very visceral experience here, and I am interested in how imagery, photography, will enable us to think about that loss, and that loss at a distance. So, for example, my aunt died earlier this week, and my mother, it was her sister, she's based in Australia. What does it mean to think about loss at a distance? What does it mean for everybody whose funerals you're not able to travel to, you can't go to? I'll stop there.
Wow. Thank you so much. You definitely laid the foundation for us there. What does it mean for us to interact with tough conversations like grief, like loss, using imagery? And I want to come to you, Aisha, because you focus in your work on creating awareness with your productions. I wanted to know, going into this particular project, what are some of the topics that you wanted to touch, and do you feel like your work was able to connect with people in the way that you hoped it would?
Wow. Okay, so I felt that the question you just asked was really what I had in mind to really talk about whenever I see someone that's interested in my work. So that was literally what I had in mind, what I wanted to do. So, before I started working on that work, I started working on about 2 or 3 projects before, and I couldn't finish. So, well, before that, I used to be a previous photographer. Yeah, but not like I didn't really feel in what I was doing, but I couldn't really feel my work. So I wanted to do something that I was really interested in, something I really cared about. And since I was a medical student, and I knew what made me be interested in medicine in the first place, which was my grandfather inspired me, then I thought, oh, why don't I start with his story? Because it was his story that inspired me to be a medical in the first place. And, you know, the funny thing was, when I started the story, 1 month after he died, so I felt that loss, and that was during the pandemic. I felt like someone really close to me, someone really, I know what this man means to me, right? I called a lot of my mentors, my friends, I was like, you guys just don't know what this means. And I found the power of photography, what it did for me was it left me with something that I cannot buy, something that between me, like the fact that I took it myself and like just weeks before he died, I know what it means to me. Something like I have this photograph of staying in my house and I love taking it again. That was the kind of mindset I had. So apart from that, I also worked on a project on the pandemic. During there was a protest during that time, NFA. So I wanted to work on the use of people using face masks because there were a lot of people in the protest. So I want to know, okay, how do people respond to this pandemic? Do they even know there's a pandemic going on? Yeah, so I had a lot of things in mind. So the major thing that really inspired me was the law. There were a lot of things actually. So it was the law and also the fact that I also got isolated. So I wanted people to feel that isolation. I wanted people to know that this thing is actually real. I want you to, that's the awareness I'm talking about. I want you to know this is real. When you lose someone, it's real. I can feel it. I just felt it recently. So that feeling was what I put in my work. And I mean, I don't know if people can feel it, but that was what I did. And yeah, I guess it would. I don't know. Yeah.
How do you feel people have interacted with your work, Zoe?
Well, man, to be honest, like, ever since I did this work, it's like everyone just wants it. They feel something, they just don't know what it is, right? And I'm like, this is really what I want to do. Yeah. The work has really put me in so many places. Yeah, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Well, I want to bring in Andrew. I know that we're running a little bit short of time, but you talked about so many things that you use your craft to capture. Speaking of some of the submissions that Aisha just made about awareness and where she was at going into the project and where it actually took her, what do you make of the conversations, for example, that happened earlier tonight that point towards how arts and, for example, the power of photography can help become a resource and a tool to support health and also to kind of create awareness around some of these uncomfortable topics concerning mental health?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very simple and basic. Photography in today's world, I would say photography is becoming like the most effective language we use to communicate, even beyond text. They say a word speaks 1,000 words. In that case, I find it, the language of photography very powerful to reach out to people. Sometimes it convey even what literally you cannot convey. Sometimes it can be therapeutic also. And so for me, I would say in today's world, I mean, especially in the world of social media where everybody now uses pictures to communicate. So for me, in a simple way, I find it an effective tool to reach out to people. It's a kind of language which I would say young people don't understand more than even writing. I know the better way you can pass knowledge to them is through using the pictures rather than just writing the text. Not saying that text is not very important, but I find the visual very effective what I call like the universal of the mass language. So in that case, I would say it's very important for us to really, use the language photography. And the question is also just using about how do you use it? Who is controlling how this picture is being used? And that's another conversation again.
That's the question I was actually
who are your audience? Yeah, sorry, yeah.
And let's go there for a minute though. I know that time is not on our side, but one of the biggest questions that and conversation, that the power of arts can be sometimes a double-edged sword, but it can be used for good. A lot of pictures that were tear-jerking that could potentially help create awareness in the right direction. What are some of the things that you think can be done to limit or mitigate the misuse of the power that is around arts and using, for example, photography to influence narratives, right? How can we protect that so that it's not used again on the flip side, that is the negative side of things?
Who is that question directed to?
It is going to you, Andrew.
For me, I think it's more important to, build the consciousness with the audience. I mean, I can take pictures, but I can't control how it will get out there. Of course, I could give a guide on how I conceive this picture, but then who reads it? So I think it's a question of cultivating the culture for people to understand the language, through education. Also, the gatekeepers. What I mean by gatekeepers, people who push out these images, the platforms, how do they find ways when they find images very complicated, rather than just push it out? Maybe there should be some way of educating the audience or putting some level of, guide so that people don't get misled. Also, the agenda behind certain pictures too. I mean, I might take a picture, or even when I want to do certain pictures, but the gatekeeper wants certain interest. So the question of what are also the agenda behind those people who really push out those images. If I take, for instance, guys like Facebook and Instagram, which is becoming one of those major gatekeeper, I might send a picture out, innocently, based on my culture context. It might mean nothing, but when it gets to somebody out there, it means something else. So the question of the guys in the middle, how do they make sure this information is being translated by me, reach out to the other audience, which doesn't have the same context? So I would say, for me, in a nutshell, educating the consumer of the images, ensuring like those in the gatekeeper are very open-minded, to make sure there's a level of guide to make sure those pictures that goes out there is not being misunderstood. But however, it's still hard, to really control all this. Like I said, I might take picture innocently, but as soon as it gets out, I can't control how it relates to other people. Yes. And that's what I would say.
All right. And to bring this home for us, though, the biggest lessons for you as an artist that you've derived out of the pandemic, and how, for example, the arts have been used for, support in terms of health, and also, again, as we seal this up, what would you want people to remember from your body of work? Zoe, could you bring it home for us?
I think I'd like to relate this to the work of Andrew and Aisha.
Actually, in the sense that I think coming out of the pandemic, what we've been reminded of is that artists help us to see. The artists help us to see differently, right? And so, sorry, my cat's just coming. And so, Andrew, with your halos around your health workers, with them in their normal clothes and then them in their scrubs, you're telling us something about the heroic actions, but you're also telling us about a performance, maybe something spiritual and religious context there as well, but you're helping us to reconceptualize these people who are putting their lives on the line for us, right? Aisha, with your work, I feel like you're gathering in something of the urgency and of the not always knowing where you are-ness, and the kind of the difficulty that frontline workers were experiencing. It feels very intimate, very much from within. I have an example of an Eritrean artist, Aida Silvestri, who's done some extraordinary work where she's looking at some images and some slogans that are coming out in the UK. Things like the NHS needs you, talking to frontline workers saying the NHS needs you. And what she's doing there is she's critiquing the racism that we have in the UK, whereby Black and Asian health workers died at a much higher rate than white health workers in the UK. And so she is helping us to question what was going on for health workers. So you've got 3 examples there of artists who are helping us to see in a very different way that we were unable to see from our rooms enclosed where we were kind of in isolation. So that is my big message. The arts enable us to see differently. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zoe and Aisha and Andrew. Ladies and gentlemen, you've done incredible work, and interacting with these images has been a joy and an honor. Well, we hope that you continue to inspire us all with your creations.